I'm Joanne Darcy, and you're listening to High Performance Woman podcast, where we're elevating stories of high performance women from across the globe. Here's what we have coming up for you today.
When I go to a class, and I'm smiling here from ear to ear because I'm just picturing a class. When everyone comes into a class, they're like, oh yeah, you know, and but after class, everyone's always buzzing, full of energy. Thanks, you know, so much. And I love that feeling. I love showing that, you know, this, and I always say, remember how you felt, you know, when you're doing this class. My mindset completely changed when my first son came along, which is Logan. I literally done a 360 flip. My mindset from being an elite athlete to wanting to be an elite mother. Because there's a lot of people that are in dark places, and I think exercise is that natural drug that makes you feel better. So it's just something that I just love to do. And even with my kids, I find if my son is moody or he's having a meltdown, I'm like, come on, we go do some exercise, you know. I honestly love seeing pregnant women train. It's so good for them, for their mindset, even for their energy, and for future, for bouncing back to where they want to be.
My guest today is Sinead Lee. Sinead has been a fitness inspiration and role model for me personally for many years. She's a multifaceted fitness professional with nearly 20 years experience and multiple qualifications across fitness, personal coaching, nutrition, strength and conditioning. In her athletic journey, she's a former kickboxing athlete with multiple world, European, national and international titles, proudly holding a second degree black belt. Today, she continues to train like an athlete while balancing the role of a busy mother with two young boys. In 2024, she's taken up Hyrox fitness racing, and in only her second race in May, she came second in the women's doubles, which secured her a place in the upcoming World Hyrox Championships in June. Sinead is a true people person with one of her deepest passions helping individuals transform into fitter, healthier and stronger versions of themselves. And she achieves this today with all of her clients through her business, Sinead's Fitness Coaching. Sinead, absolute pleasure to have you on High Performance Woman podcast. You're very welcome.
Thank you. I'm very excited to be here, and thanks for having me.
Yeah, great. There's absolutely so much that I want to talk to you about. So many different topics across fitness and well-being. I think some of our listeners may be curious after that intro though as to what Hyrox is, because it's very new phenomenon in the fitness industry. So you might just explain a little bit about Hyrox just to get us started.
Yeah, so Hyrox it doesn't sound too bad. So it's a total of 8 kilometre runs and 8 functional exercises. So it's a fitness race. And a lot of people think it's the same as CrossFit. It's a lot different. So it's catered for everyone. So if you're an elite athlete, you can do it. Obviously, if you're competitive, it's going to be super hard. But you can also go and just complete the course too. Again, for someone that just wants to go and achieve something, they can do that. So you do a kilometre run. Do you want me to explain exactly what it is?
Yeah, well, just give us a flavour of what it is. I agree with you. It sounds a lot easier than it is. So if you could maybe just talk about some of the elements within it.
Yeah, so you start off with a kilometre run.
Yeah.
And then you go straight in. So if you're doing, for example, I've qualified as doubles, so I'm with a partner. You've got a kilometre ski erg, so they call it 1,000 metres because it's metres on a ski erg.
Yeah.
And you share the load on that, and then you go straight in. You both do the kilometre run.
Okay.
And then you go straight back in again. You've got a sled push, so it's between 50 to 80 metres of a sled push. And then you go on a kilometre run. Then you do sled pull. And then you go on a kilometre run again. You come back and you do 100 metres of broad burpee jumps. That's one of my favourite ones.
Okay.
It's people's most hated one, but for some reason I just love it. And then after that, then you've got a kilometre row. Straight back into a kilometre run. So, and then you come back, and at that stage you kind of feel like, right, life's come back. I know. You start counting down your stations. So you do your kilometre run, you come back in, and I'm making sure I have all the exercises right here. So after you've done the row, you've got farmer's walk, so it's you carry 2 kettlebells and you go 100 metres. You do your kilometre run, and then you come back and you've got 100 metres walk and lunges, kilometre run, and then you have between 75 and 100 wall balls, and then you run to the finish line.
And you said the burpees was your favourite bit. I have traumatic memories over the years of you getting me to do millions of burpees in Fit Studios. But what's the worst part, or what was the toughest part when you're taking part in Hyrox?
So that's where I've taken up running now, because running wasn't my forte. And I found after runs I was quite fatigued. And especially for I've two exercises that I found absolutely just killed me. Was the sled push. My legs were just gone after sled push. I felt like someone had just zapped any sort of energy on my legs. Trying to run a kilometre run as fast as you can after that was pretty intense. And the rower gets my legs too. So I found on the rower I just fatigued after that. So I'm trying to now over time now, as you know, for anything that you do, the more experience you gain. So as I've done my first two now, I'm training more into it, and I'm trying to gain more experience and what ways that I can challenge my energy and use it a little bit less while I'm going into the rower, and other runs that I'm able to go into runs as fast as I can and recover better to going into the functional exercise, if that makes sense.
But it's amazing that you're kind of fine-tuning it now after two, even though the second of those two you came second. So it's like phenomenal achievement. Where are the Worlds taking place?
They are in Nice in France.
Oh, lovely.
Nice is gorgeous, so I'm looking forward to we're getting away for a few days, so it'll be nice.
Yeah.
I haven't got babysitting organised yet, but
and who's your partner that you shout out to anybody? And who's your partner then that you work with for the Hyrox?
Her name is Clara Hogan. Like, she is phenomenal athlete. She actually done Hell Week.
Okay.
She's phenomenal, and you know, how I came into counter with Clara was my husband booked to go to a different Hyrox from me. He couldn't get it. There was no tickets left for the one that I was in, so he wants to go with someone. And he ended up meeting this guy through a friend, and it's his girlfriend was Clara.
Okay.
And he was like, look, my girlfriend is, you know, she's looking for people to train with, you know, at her level. So I was like, yeah, take on the challenge. And then I realised soon that I wasn't at her level. She's an absolute machine. So now I've got tunnel vision. I'm like, she's phenomenal. Like, she's super fast. She's super strong. So she's a level above me, and I'm chasing to get to that level.
Yeah. It's inspirational though. I mean, to have the level of fitness that you have and to have somebody that you're tracking is like unreal. And how did your husband get on with Hyrox?
Yeah, he's brilliant. In fairness, he done doubles as well with one of his friends, and they got like sub 60. Obviously, generally men are faster and stronger than us. Do you know what I mean? When it comes to that type of race, so they got under sub 60, but phenomenal time as well for the two of them. So they didn't qualify, so I keep rubbing that in his face. So, but he's still done a super time.
So you're in the lead at the moment.
Yeah.
Well, look, best of luck anyway.
Thanks so
in
much.
June. I'm sure you'll do amazing. I'll be watching on Instagram to see how you get on.
Thanks.
But I want to go back, Sinead, probably to your younger years, your childhood, because I think watching you over the years, you know, you're what I class as consistent high performance. And I think you talk a lot about consistency when you're, you know, on Instagram or when you're training people and things. And I think, you know, that's something I've learned from you as well, is it might not be how much you do every time, but it's just to do it all the time and keep it consistent, you know. Yeah. But I suppose I'm just curious as to, you know, what were things like when you were a kid? Like, how has your childhood formed who you are today?
You know, I was just thinking about this. I actually don't know what made my mindset so focused. I think, thinking back, I think it was a defense mechanism. Like, my mum died when I was quite young, so I had loads of brothers. I have 5 brothers, 2 sisters. And for me, it was more just, it was survival, you know, and we grew up quite fast. My dad was out working all the time. And then I always wanted to get into sports. My brothers were always into sports. And at first, one of my brothers was a great boxer at the time, I must say. And I wanted to get into the boxing club. But back then, like, Katie Taylor wasn't really out there, and they weren't allowing me into the boxing club. And I was trying to find something. I just wanted to get into sports. It just seemed to fit me, because when I was in school, I found academically I struggled, and I seemed to not fit in the way that academically. But when it came to sports, that was my forte, and that's where I fit in. And I felt, this is for me. You know, this is where I don't feel stupid. You know, I feel I can be successful in this. And that's where I think it empowered me to chase that dream. But yeah, so then growing up, I couldn't get into the boxing, and this is a funny story, and I've said this some time ago as well to a few friends about what got me into kickboxing. I was a real tomboy back in the day, so any sports going, whether it was football, I played in the boys team, whether it was basketball, anything that was going, I just jumped in, I just wanted to do. And it wasn't encouraged by my dad or anything, 'cause my dad was always working. So I eventually found kickboxing when I was 11 and went up. And would you believe, I used to always cycle up by myself, and I used to get class on tick. As you know, my dad had 2 jobs, 8 kids by himself. It was quite hard. So I kind of just was an independent kind of person. And anytime I didn't have any pocket money or anything saved, I'd be like, it's all right if I pay you next week. And I had my kickboxing classes on tick. And I just found a love for kickboxing. I found this was my passion. This is what I wanted to do, and I was good at it. And I knew then that this is what I was good at. I didn't feel stupid. I fit in, and people looked up to me, and I just felt amazing at that. So that pursued me then, and then I kickboxed for a long time, till I was 29. Competed. This first competition was when I was 14. We went to Spain, and I won my first junior world championship. And I just kept competing from there. And I suppose consistently training all the time, wanting to be better, and that kind of mindset of not wanting to fail, didn't want to fail myself, didn't want to be seen as a failure to anyone, made me morphed me into that kind of tunnel vision athlete that I was. And then obviously as I got older, your body changes. It was hard to cut weight all the time. At this time I hadn't done nutrition, so I didn't really know much about nutrition, and a lot of athletes didn't at that stage, especially when you had a weight category to get to. So you'd done the extreme, which was, thinking back now, it was absolutely crazy. If I could talk to any athlete that has to do a weight category, like, honestly, please just come and talk to me, and I'd helped him out, like happily helped him out in any way I could, because obviously your performance slacks massively. Dehydration alone, your fuel. So I used to have to cut weight, and I mean, like, Epsom salt baths, sweat it out, anything you could do to extremes. I won't even go into depth. And there was one stage that Brian was with me, and I wanted him to support me, and I needed to get to this weight, and I was really, really struggling to get to the weight. And I got to the weight, was severely dehydrated, and was rushed to hospital. And they said, like, you need to watch what you're doing here. And they told me my creatine levels are through the roof, and if I went on 2 more days of what I was doing, that it could go for the worst.
What age were you around this time? This was
27. Yeah, still tunnel vision, still silly, like, Yeah. And even though I trained so much, and I knew that my nutrition was important, it was nearly like, you need to make your weight. If you don't make your weight, you don't fight. So once you made your weight, you could focus on your fight then. But God, if only I knew back then how my performance would have been, it would have been 50% better. So after that then, that kind of changed my mindset. I was like, what am I doing? I could have stopped me from having kids. So then after that, kind of just changed that tunnel vision, and it opened up my perspective into things. And like, I'm not a professional athlete here. I'm an amateur athlete. I'm not getting paid for this job. What am I doing? What am I doing to myself? What am I doing to my body? So that's when I went on to do nutrition then. And it kind of changed my mindset on kickboxing altogether. And then after having my kids, Logan came along first. I realised that, that I couldn't put my life on hold anymore, and that I couldn't just keep doing kickboxing. But yeah, just kind of most of it from my younger age, I think.
Yeah. There's a lot in what you said there. What age were you when your mum passed away?
I was 4 when my mum died, yeah.
Wow.
I remember like the back of my hand, which is mad. I remember the funeral day. I remember my dad telling me, like, when you're 4, you wouldn't think you remember those kind of things. There's a lot of things, obviously, I don't remember. But yeah, I was 4 when she died. She actually had a brain tumour, but it was benign. And they successfully took it out. And they put her into recovery meningitis ward. She got meningitis, her brain swelled, and she died within 6 days of going in. She was 34. And she was the most beautiful woman you could ever set eyes on. 34, like, so young. Like, I'm older than that now,
Yeah.
So it was, I think growing up it was different. It was when I had kids I realised how much I missed her and how much I wanted her around.
Yeah. 34 is so young. I've seen pictures of her that you've put up over the years on anniversaries and things, and she's like a model. Yeah. Absolutely beautiful. Gorgeous. You actually look quite alike.
Well, thanks very much.
But that's very, very tough. Like, where are you in the family? Have you?
So I'm the third youngest. So I have a younger brother and a younger sister.
Yeah.
They're both in Australia now. So we were quite young. Like my brother was 3 and my younger sister was 1.
Yeah.
And then it grew up to my oldest brother then was 14 at the time.
Yeah. And then, like, from your own perspective now with 2 boys, like, you know, how do you feel that's impacted your own being a mother? I mean, you said obviously that, you know, you missed her. Has that shaped the way you parent your kids, having grown up, you know, from such a young age without a mother?
Yeah, like it definitely has. I want to be, obviously, my mindset completely changed when my first son came along, which is Logan. I literally done a 360 flip. My mindset from being an elite athlete to wanting to be an elite mother. I wanted to be the best mother I could. And all my worries had changed from, I want to be the best kickboxer. I want to be the best at this. You know, I want to be at the top all the time, chase the dream. And then I was like, none of that matters anymore. I wanted to be the best mother. I wanted to be the best mother I could to him. And all my worries from that changed to, you know, am I good enough to be his mother? Am I good enough mother? You know, what do you do? But and that changed then. So I wanted to obviously be around them more, support them, and be able to open up to my kids and let my kids open up to me and let them feel that they could talk to, you know, that whatever they did, whether it was right or wrong, that they could come to me and talk to me. And because that's something I didn't have, especially as a girl, being around with lots of boys, and my dad was something that I felt I couldn't talk to anyone about, you know. So I wanted my boys to know that they could talk to me whenever they wanted, and I encouraged them about fitness and training and how important it is that that'd never be a chore for them. That's just a natural thing to do. And even eating with food now, I always explain to them what's on their plate and what's important, why they should be eating this, and about sweets, that they can have it in moderation, and, you know, allow yourself to have the things that you want. And I explain about energy and foods and proteins and why they should be eating them as well, so they have a little bit more understanding. So they're not going in as they go older not having a clue about it, because most people don't.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
so I just find, I suppose, like my mother, she was amazing, you know, having 8 kids when she was 34. Like, suppose she had them before she was 34, you know. How could you even do that? I've got 2 kids and I'm like, that's enough. That's enough.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And it's hard trying to juggle everything with that as well with your kids, because when your kids get older, you want them to be active, their inner activities, the logistics of running forward and back with them, with schools and, you know, and their sports as well. And you have to kind of, I suppose, adapt to that and adapt to, you know, and sacrifices of what you can fit in and what they can do as well.
Sounds though you fostered such a healthy environment, and for the boys to have such a healthy relationship with food and fitness. I mean, if you talk about the food part for a minute, because you see so many parents, and I mean, I don't have kids yet, but you know, you just see it all the time that people are struggling with sweets and sugar, and you know, kids just kind of gravitate towards it and want it. And like, so what advice would you give to people, I suppose, in terms of the fostering that more healthy relationship with kids when they're growing up? I mean, do your boys understand the moderation piece that you explained there, that they can have the sweets in moderation, or would they still want sweets kind of a lot of the time, the way probably most kids would?
Well, no. So I have a yin and yang, my 2 boys, and my youngest is, the word is best explained, is a fiend for the sweets. And I'm trying to teach him. He's still 4, so he's still quite young. And when I'm cooking dinner, I always put the best dinners out on the table. And I'm like, this is why you need to, like, just keep encouraging him to eat better, you know? And for Logan, though, Logan's a little bit older now, so he's kind of starting to understand and why he should eat protein and importance of eating after training and those kind of things. So I'm trying to teach Logan, because Logan's gone to quite an extreme now where he doesn't want to eat sweets. He doesn't want to, which in kind of a way is good, but I'm like, he's still young. I want him to enjoy himself. For example, after his Gaelic, they had a party, like it was a blitz, you know, and they all had ice cream, and he didn't want the ice cream. And I want him to understand that, you know, it's okay to have the ice cream. It's just if you don't have 7 ice creams every single day of the year, that's where it's too much, you know. Or the chocolate bar, you can have a chocolate bar a day, everything in moderation is fine. And I'm trying to teach them that it's same with everything, with any sort of food, or even with exercise, you know, it all has to balance. Where the other guy is climbing up the drawers to get into the press, the chocolate, I have to hide everything from him, even though I'm trying to teach him. I'm struggling with him at the moment because he's quite a picky eater. So he only eats mainly pasta and dry foods. He's not really a saucy person. But I'm not worried too much because Logan was such a bad eater. And we were struggling with him for a long time and how he eats everything and he understands the importance of foods. So I'm just like, it'll come to him, and I'm letting it go. But I think putting out your dinners and showing them what you're eating, like, if you're going to McDonald's every day, your kids just see that as the norm. They think it's okay. All right, well, if you're eating McDonald's every day, that should be okay. I see my mum and dad doing it where it's not. And I've explained that to my kids. No, we're not having McDonald's. I'm going to, it's fine. You can have McDonald's once every so often, but that'd be once every few months. But I wouldn't be going out and encouraging them to have a McDonald's every Friday as a treat because they think that's a good thing. Where I'm like, okay, you can pick something. Maybe you can have, let's go to the shop and we'll pick your best ice cream or your bar chocolate and you can have that, So rather than encouraging them to go for bad options.
Yeah, defining what the treat is.
Yeah.
I suppose, yeah. No, it's interesting because I think, it can be such a struggle. And it can be such a struggle in school as well, I think, with kids that are, obviously around other kids and one kid wants what the next kid wants.
Well, that's it. So. And, and you have to wing it as well. Like, a lot of parents, before their kids come along, like, I'm never going to feed my kids, blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to, they're not going to have drinks and they're not going to eat this and whatever. And then it's like, at one stage when your kid's not eating, you're like, I'll give them anything to get calories into them, So it's a matter of like allowing them to have the things, anything. Sometimes my child only eats toast in the morning, or if I'm giving them milk, I sometimes try and put a bit of protein in because he won't eat any sort of protein. So it's a matter of just how you learn to live with what they're learning over time. So it's a matter of what you put in front of them and what they see is what they're going to do. If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does. And just what you said about kind of your years in school and just to jump back to that for a second and kind of feeling academically kind of left out. Was it an all-girls school or was it a mixed school that you were in?
Primary school, I was in an all-girls school and went to a secondary school, which was mixed then.
Yeah. And I suppose, like, what would you advise people based on your experience in school in terms of like academic versus sports and encouraging people? Do you think things are still the same now, or do you feel that we've evolved in terms of how we encourage kids?
I think we have evolved, but at the same time I think kids need to not be afraid to ask for help. Where I was quite anxious. I felt stupid. I couldn't ask for help. I didn't want the teachers to judge me. I didn't want anyone to judge me. Even if the teacher asked, okay, it's your turn to read out, I literally wanted to go around and swallow me up. I got panicked. And I'm sure, looking back now, I'm sure all kids are kind of like that. But in my family, my dad wasn't around too much because he was working, So no one encouraged me. No one encouraged me to read. No one encouraged me to do my homework. No one encouraged me to go to secondary school. No one got me up out of bed, told me to go to school. That I'd done that all myself. So, and even at that time, there was times where I was struggling in class, didn't understand what was going on. And I just got on with it, said nothing and just tried to get on with it because I didn't want to feel stupid, And I feel there's a lot of kids that may still feel like that, if they just talk to a teacher and explain to them that they're struggling, that they will get the help that they need.
Yeah.
Or I just didn't ask.
So if we come back to today in terms of your own business and how that's going for you in terms of what you've done over the last few years, having become a mother of two boys, how have you carved out the business for yourself?
Like it is quite hard to juggle everything. But the terms of I try and kind of get all my stuff done in the mornings. I've got my online coaching, which is quite good because I can juggle everything. I can collect my kids from school and I can bring them to sports and fitness or to their games or whatever it is that they're doing. And I still teach in person because I just absolutely love it. I love the energy. I love how people feel. When I go to a class, and I'm smiling here from ear to ear because I'm just picturing a class. When everyone comes into a class, they're like, oh yeah, and but after class, everyone's always buzzing, full of energy. Thanks, so much. And I love that feeling. I love showing that, this, and I always say, remember how you felt, when you're doing this class. And I just love to encourage that and put my energy into other people as well to make them feel better because I don't want anyone to feel, because there's a lot of people that are in dark places, and I think exercise is that natural drug that makes you feel better. So it's just something that I just love to do. And even with my kids, I find if my son is moody or he's having a meltdown, I'm like, come on, we go do some exercise, you know. So I just I try to, it's manageable, but at the same time I have a cut off point. Like it's very, very hard for me in the evenings to do anything because I've got my kids, you know, and it's just, and then the guilt comes in as well, you know. Weekends, I've learned to say no to a lot of things, because people don't, even though they have kids themselves, they don't, you know, and they're thinking of themselves and they don't mean to do it, but they're asking, oh, what about weekends? And you're like, oh, and then you feel bad because you can't get somebody in, or you can't fit them into your slot. And then you feel guilty of it and you're fitting them in, and then you get over panicked and stressed. So I've learned to say no, and I have a strict timetable of what I can fit in those days. I've just learned to work off that then. And people can then be understandable once I explain to them, look, my kids have this on, that on, I can juggle things around. So I've kind of made a fit into me and my kids' life.
Yeah, I think a lot of people struggle with that, don't they? In terms of taking on too much. So from what you've said there, it's like good advice is to see what your like ideal week looks like, really, and explain the why to people, and then kind of fit everything in that you can.
Yeah.
How do you say no to somebody though? Like, how, if someone's asking you to do something, or they're on to you a few times about doing something, like what's your advice to somebody just to say no without, you know, feeling guilty after it, or without feeling like you've insulted somebody or let them down?
It's not, you don't say a straight out no, obviously, you know what I mean, because that's quite blunt. It's more of, look, you apologise for, my schedule is quite busy. They don't really know what your schedule is like, you know. You don't really need to explain, look, can't fit you in because it's to bring my son to Gaelic. But when you get to know people, they understand, especially if they're parents themselves, you know. So I'll say, look, I'm very sorry. My calendar's booked up for this month, but I'll keep you in mind, keep in touch. I'll try get you in. Or look, if I have a cancellation coming up, I'll try get you in. And people understand that, you know. So I think once you kind of let them know that you're aware that you can't get them in, but you're still trying to fit them in, people are a little bit okay with that, I think, rather than saying, no, sorry, can't fit you in, see you later. I think that's just a little bit more. Yeah. So I try to accommodate people to the best I can, but still tell myself, say no when you can, because I've just, from experience, it's stressful and you get overwhelmed, you know, and then it affects you in your own life. Yeah.
No, I'm very familiar with that feeling. As much as I try to work on it, it still creeps in, and I'm like, how am I here again?
Yeah. Because there's a lot of people that are in dark places, and I think exercise is that natural drug that makes you feel better. So it's just something that I just love to do. And even with my kids, I find if my son is moody or he's having a meltdown, I'm like, come on, we go do some exercise, you know.
I would have seen you back in the day, you know, training throughout pregnancy, and I think it's something that a lot of people are worried about when they find out they're pregnant first, particularly their first pregnancy. And they train. So they train, you know, 3 to 4, even 5 times a week. And then they find out they're pregnant, and then they worry. And there's so many kind of conflicting messages out there about what's safe, what's not, do gentle movement. Yet you could be used to doing a lot of strength and conditioning. So if someone was to come to you and say, just found out I'm pregnant, I want to keep training, what advice would you give to people throughout their pregnancy in terms of maintaining a good level of fitness?
I honestly love seeing pregnant women train. It's so good for them, for their mindset, even for their energy, and for future, for bouncing back to where they want to be. And as well, our bodies change so much through pregnancy. Like we've got magnificent, our bodies are unbelievably amazing. We're growing another human inside us, you know. So again, coming from experience, when I was pregnant on Logan, I was coming from an elite athlete background, training constant, cutting weight all the time, you know, to my body just getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And I didn't know, I felt so out of my own body. And, you know, it was hard. I didn't like what I was seeing. And then when it came second one, I changed and it was very hard, my first one, mentally, because I couldn't do what I used to. Obviously I trained, but I couldn't spar, I couldn't do kickboxing, I couldn't hardly get kicked in the stomach, you know, them kind of things, or if you fell on your belly. So I had to change what I was doing slightly. So what I would say is congratulations, and embrace the change, you know, because your body's amazing. You're bringing a little human onto the earth. And then it'd be the training, I'd say, continue what you're doing. Your first trimester, obviously you're pretty tired, depending on the person themselves, because, you know, everybody's different. Every pregnancy is different. Some people might be completely fine for the first 3 months and someone might be extremely sick, extremely drained. For me, I had nauseousness, morning sickness. I don't know why it's called morning sickness, because it lasts all day. And I just got on with it. Because I knew once I trained, I always felt better. And that's my forte in everything. I always do that. Get up and just go, because it'll make you feel better. And for training, first trimester, you can still do the exact same thing that you've done before. Like your baby's like a pea size, tiny. When you start coming into your second trimester, things can change slightly. You start just bringing your weight down a little bit, because you're going to start getting out of breath more as well, you know. So you can still continuously what you do. Third trimester, I'd start lightening your weights. You're not going to be doing massive big jumps. You're going to be quite kyphosis. So your body's going to be a lot of weight pushing forward. So you'll have that anterior tilt, you know, with your every load pushing forward. So you're going to be off balance. Wouldn't be doing single leg stuff around that, just because you may fall over. Your balance is going to be triggered, you know. Obviously core exercises, your abdominals are being stretched to max. You're not going to be able to contract them. But you could still mostly train all the things you've done through pregnancy, but you just tweak a little things. Like, for example, when you're coming into your last month of your pregnancy and you're pretty much cooked, you know, and you feel like I've got no energy, you're losing your breath, everything's compacted up, like all your organs are pushed right up on top, and you're walking up the stairs and you're out of breath. But I found at that stage, it's important, even if it's 10 minutes of training, and that could be put out with it over 30 minutes. So you'll find you might need longer breaks because you're so out of breath. Your temperature might increase too much, do you know what I mean? Because your heart rate will increase, because obviously your organs, again, you're out of breath so much as well. So if it's 10 minutes, like 3 exercises, and you're taking a minute, 2 minutes in between, walking around, and it'll just make you feel so much better. Believe me, I've been there and feeling so tired and feeling like you're not yourself. That exercise helps you massively, and then it'll help you massively coming back into it after. Maybe it'll help you bounce back that much quicker as well, you know.
Yeah. And from what you're saying there, then it's really not much change in, you know, the first trimester, unless obviously you're sick and there's something else that your doctor has advised you against training. The second one then is more around adjusting the weights, and then as you go into your third trimester, obviously it's protecting the bump itself, and then not being able to do as much around core, and just being more aware of the weight and the weight distribution in your body.
Yeah, like example, like doing a press up and stuff, you're not going to be able to do a normal press up, right? And sometimes, you know, before people like, oh, you can't do overhead stuff. You can. It's just a matter of you're not holding something like doing 100 metres of overhead walking lunges. You're just not going to be capable of doing that. And you shouldn't do that either. But you can still do a shoulder press going over your head, you know. It's just, and you learn as you go on as well, what your body and what you can and can't do. So it's a matter of just modifying the things that you can do and what makes you feel comfortable in your training. But I'd say to anyone, is to continue training through your pregnancy.
Yeah, because I think there's a lot of fear around it at times, isn't there? People feel like they shouldn't, or they should just stop. But when you think of that, it's completely counterproductive, particularly for people who train for their heads
I'd
more than their
100%
body, you know?
encourage everyone. It's so beneficial.
Yeah.
You know, it's better to train than not to train.
Yeah. And there's not really then a kind of specific program that you need to adapt, as you say. It's just more, if you're already training, continue on, listen, and then just tweak slightly as you're going through, unless, of course, there's something that you're advised by your doctor
And
not to
again,
do.
if you have any sort of problems through your pregnancy, of course.
Yeah.
But yeah, like what I wouldn't recommend is do something new. Take up some sort of new exercise. You know, you change your exercise. Your body's used to doing what you've been doing prior to getting pregnant. Keep doing that. Don't just go to something randomly new. And that's what I wouldn't recommend do.
Yeah. What about running during pregnancy?
Yeah, like you can your first trimester you could still run. Second trimester you're going to slow down, you're going to get heavier. Third trimester you're not going to be able to run. Like, you know, you can try and run, but it's just not going to happen. So yes, first trimester you can still. First trimester there's a lot going on in your body, you know, your hormones are all over the place, but the baby's pretty small. So you can mostly do everything that you've been doing before.
And what about postpartum then, in terms of, like, I mean, obviously it depends if you had a cesarean, how the birth was, etc. But generally speaking, what would you recommend kind of postpartum in terms of getting back to where you would have been at in terms of a level of training previously to becoming pregnant?
So for anyone that's been at a high level of training and, they're quite eager to get back into training, I'd recommend that you take your time. Your body is that's being through a massive process. And you need to let it kind of get back to its normality as well. Let your body heal. So a minimum of 6 weeks before you go back and do anything. And then what I would recommend anyone to focus on is get that core strength back. Your core is your center of gravity. You can go back in and you can do your squats and your lunges, but your core, you get that core strength back. Build up your core strength, and from there you can start building your fundamentals into everything else, but gradually build yourself back in. Because obviously there's other things that, your pelvic floor and, random exercise that you can do that you used to be able to do that you probably can't do. Can't hold your urine in when you're doing jumps and stuff like that until your core strength is back. So that's why, again, I'd recommend doing a lot of core strength. And it's not even doing silly sit-ups. It's a matter of how to contract and engage your core, and getting that core stability back in before, again, you go on to start doing your main fundamental exercise.
Yeah. And are the specific, I'm sure it's easy to find, specific exercises that you're describing there in terms of a program that you could do following having a baby, like to get those core muscles. They're probably not something that you're going to get in a standard class or PT session.
No, and a lot of people in a standard class wouldn't actually know how to engage their core correctly anyway. So like it's hard to explain, but it's a matter of just neutralising the spine and sucking your core in and tensing up like you're holding away. Like you could lie on the floor. Simple things is keeping your legs bent, lie on the floor and focus on planting that lower back to the ground and just tensing that core up like it's a 20 kilo ball coming down to slam into your stomach. Holding those alone for like 20 seconds. And sometimes your muscles might be dormant, and they're like knocking on the door to switch on, but it's not happening. But that will come over consistently doing it over time. Eventually, the door will open and the muscles will start activating again. So simple little things like that, even if it's 3-4 times a day, even sitting in your car, rolling your pubic bone forward, having that neutral spine, semi-engaging your core will help you get that stronger activation on your abdominals then.
And in terms of people that wouldn't really train or haven't ever really trained or hate gyms, and believe it or not, like I'm a PT, I did the qualification before COVID just as a hobby, and I hate gyms. I hate gyms unless I'm going to a class where everything's laid out for me. Someone's going to tell me what to do for an hour. But I think a lot of people who've never trained probably think of that anxiety of walking into a big gym and trying to find a machine and everybody there looks like they're really fit and you feel like the only non-fit one in the whole room. If somebody comes to you and they've never really trained before, like what's the approach or how do you get them into fitness and, up to a level where they're feeling good about themselves?
So if there's someone coming to me to do an online training program and they want to join a gym, I encourage them even to go one time a week. And what I would say with them is your first few sessions, go in and just look around, suss out where your machines are, and explain to them that everyone's there for themselves. No one's looking at you. Everyone's just there to train themselves. And most of the people in the gym that are there all the time, they look really fit and strong. They're looking at themselves, and if anything, they're looking in the mirror, not even for their physique, they're looking in the mirror for their technique. They don't see. If anything, it'd be more the PTs that'd be aware looking around for anyone. A good PT would be looking at someone that's doing their technique wrong, might go over and fix them. Most of the time, no one's there to look at you. Everyone's there for the same reason. Whether it's you're starting off or someone always has something that they want to be better at. So they're there to improve themselves. And that's what you go to the gym for. And it's a matter of just you getting used to your machines that you've done before. Like I went to a gym there a while ago and I was doing, I think it was hip thrust or was something I was doing. And it was a new machine that I'd never seen before. I did not know how to use the machine. I stood around like for ages saying, I don't know how to use this. Like, I'm going to look like a right tick. But I just said to someone, I just was like, hey, sorry, do you mind showing me this? I've never used this before. And no problem. It's a matter of just asking. And again, that no one's looking at you. Nobody is looking at you. Yeah. And that's what makes, I think it kind of eases you going into a gym.
And if people work with you specifically as their coach, what could they expect?
Is it one-to-ones, face-to-face or online coaching?
Well, the online coaching is, the the face-to-face at the moment, is that more classes that you're doing, or are you doing one-to-one PTs as well?
Yeah, I do one-to-one PTs and I do
Okay.
classes as well.
Yeah.
But the online stuff is I tailor it to the individual. So I don't just give them a generalised plan. So I have a chat with them, and sometimes I make it work around like what time do they have? What time can they fit their plan into? You know, so if it's someone that's really, really busy and you're like, look, Sinead, I only have 45 minutes, fine. We'll make it work for 45 minutes because it's important that you do something rather than do nothing, you know. So I go to the gym and I'll set up a plan for them to do within those 45 minutes, so they've got their workout in and they come out, whether it's a quick strength exercise. And I always explain, you need to get your strength, and your strength is so important, especially for women, because, you know, our bone density, our lean muscle. So I'd say a minimum of three times a week is training. And if they can't fit 3 sessions in, I'd start off at 1. I'll bring a little bit in, even if it's a half an hour, 3 strength exercises and a little bit of HIIT so they feel good. And then eventually we'll build up to 2. You make time, you start prioritising your health and your fitness. And I explain this over time because habits are hard to build. You know, it's about consistency and showing up and doing it for yourself. So I find if you continuously do something, those new habits will form. You know, your old habits are always going to creep in. They're always going to be there knocking on you in your ear all the time, you know. And it's the same for everyone. Same for me too. But it's a matter of just being consistent and showing up for yourself. And if you want to do better, the things that you have to do is improve on. So I always say, look, let's start off at 1, because if it's someone that's coming in that's starting with me and they're like, yeah, I want to do 5 sessions a week and go and do this and this. I'm like, hang on. How many sessions have you been training at the moment? If they haven't been doing any, I'm like, let's start with 1. Because everyone wants that quick fix. They want to see results straight away. And that's not the best way forward. For long-term results, it's about small steps over time to get to that bigger goal.
Really, that consistency again.
Absolutely. On everything, it's consistency, you know.
Yeah. And just in terms of a question that I would ask all the guests on the podcast is that I believe that every woman embodies high performance. What do you think about that statement and why?
I absolutely agree with you. I think any woman can achieve high performance, you know, because women, we have such strong mental and physical strengths, whether it's, you know, we're such great multitaskers, you know, we've got empathy, we learn to juggle things a lot more as well. And I just think if we're encouraged in the right way, we can have limited professionalism. We can go, or sky's the limit, you know. But and I really, really believe that any woman has the potential to embody high performance.
And when you say that if we're encouraged in the right way, what does that look like? What would an example of, you know, encouraging a woman or a female in the right way to achieve high performance?
If it's something that they want to do, whether it's support around you, and if you don't have the support around you, you need to change the people around you, you know, because you can do absolutely anything you put your mind to. So it's a matter of your support that you have. For example, if you want to become a French teacher and you've never spoke French in your life, and someone's going to say, well, you can't do that. Like, you don't speak French. The only way you're going to get better at it is going and you know, going to college and teaching yourself and giving the time to do it. So anyone can do that. Anyone can be a French teacher. Anyone can do anything once you put your mind to it and you have the right support around you. Yeah. So what I mean about is that you have good support network around you, that your partner, your family are there and they encourage you. If they're not encouraging you, you need to distance yourself from them.
Yeah.
And I know that's hard to say, but you need to have that encouragement around you. You need to have people that want you to be empowered. You know what I mean? They want you to achieve your goals. So it's important to have that good circle around you as well.
Yeah.
You know, when there's people in your life that have been there all your life, and especially if it's family, you know, and they trigger you in the wrong way, or they're not supporting you in the right way, you feel like you can't just dust them off and say, okay, see you later, like, I don't want you in my life. You have to just gradually distance yourself, spend less time with them, keep yourself busy and just say, I can't make these things, you know what I mean? You have to sacrifice going to certain things to be where you want to be in life.
Yeah, agree, totally agree. Just on nutrition, you mentioned when you were talking about kickboxing from a young age, from 11 years old and throughout your teenage years, and obviously our bodies start to change and there was very little advice. And I think even today we've very little research, a lot more than what we had, and probably it's progressing quite quickly in terms of females and how our bodies change and what nutrition looks like at different times in the month even, or at different times in our lives. What would your advice be around nutrition for females specifically, in terms of keeping healthy and probably adjusting for what might be going on with us physically at certain times?
I would just say fuel your body right. So less of the processed foods. Don't be afraid to eat, because that's where your performance can. Your hydration and your food is important. Carbohydrates. This is one thing that I'd love to shout out at the top of a building on a microphone is carbohydrates are not your enemy. They're actually your fuel to your performance. They're your main source of fuel, your main source of energy. So we need them. It's the same calorie as protein. It's the exact same calorie. A calorie is a calorie at the end of the day. Carbohydrates, so there's so much information out there, people can get lost, So a carbohydrate it absorbs, it holds onto water. And the whole reason it holds onto water is it holds onto a molecule of your glycogen so that it can later be used as energy in your body. And that's released into your body then. So it's only scientifically the way our bodies work. It's not like it's going to hold on to a glass of water and just make you feel heavier. It's not going to make your body fat jump by 2 kilos. If you're drinking 2 litres of water, of course your body weight's going to go up, but you're going to flush that out with toxins. But when you eat carbohydrates, yes, your body may weigh a little bit different, but it's not actually body fat. That your body's not going to change. And if anything in the performance for an athlete, it'd be that your performance, you need to have that carbohydrate in your body. It's a main source for anything. And then your protein obviously is one of the essentials for growth and repair of the body. Your protein is not an energy system. It's your body doesn't look for energy. Your protein is your growth and your repair of your body. So it's so important that we get it in, especially after training, and we get enough protein in. And protein is more, it's more satisfying than carbohydrates. So the thing is about carbohydrates is it's not that it's satisfying. Carbohydrates taste so nice that we tend to, for example, let's use the Kellogg's granola with the chocolate chunks in. When we have them in our house, I find my hand keeps dipping into them, So carbohydrate doesn't fill you. So you tend to go back for more. Or you can overeat in your carbohydrates. So that you can overeat on your calories, especially if you're tracking your calories. Where protein, it satisfies you, it fills you for longer, And then also, its thermogenesis is that to break down your protein, your body burns off more calories to break it down than it does for any other macro. And then your fats are just essential for, transports of nutrients around the body, especially for hormones, your mental state. Your fats are so important as well.
And what are good fats? What would be, if somebody is weight conscious, let's say, and they're thinking, okay, well, fats, I'll go low fat and things. Like, what would be the good fats that you could get into your diet?
Again, your fats, you need to be, I suppose, in moderation, because a gram of fat is 9 calories. So it's a lot bigger. It's nearly double the amount. If it is double the amount of carbohydrates and protein. But it's essential for your body also. So like your avocados, your nuts, pulses, seeds, all those kind of things are essential. And even some small saturated fats is okay to have too. Like your natural butters and stuff like that as well. But the things that you'd keep to a lower take in would be, for example, your oils and your margarines and processed kind of fats as well. But again, an avocado, I'd recommend, if you're going to have an avocado, you wouldn't have 2 or 3 of them a day, because then you're racking the calories. Same with nuts, a small amount of nuts. And again, they all complement each other. All your macros complement each other. So for example, your carbohydrates can spike your insulin, so you can have that insulin surge right up because of the glucose, okay? So your protein, your fats can come in as a little kind of fighter, and it just calms it down, slows it down to have that balance, so it sustains itself throughout the day, rather than, so when you find, if you just have, like, someone goes at lunchtime and they find they don't want to eat something and just have an apple. An apple, okay, they find it's great, I'm getting my apple in, it's fruit, but it's just sugar. So it's going to spike up, and then within an hour they're going to be starving, they're going to feel pretty tired because their insulin went jump, and when it jumps up it has to come down. So even if you balance that out with a handful of nuts, it'll just
so blended at every meal. You have each of your macros at every meal. I think you're right, there's so much information out there, it's hard for people to kind of pick out what's right for them, but I think that's quite simple, isn't it? Just to make sure that you have your fats, carbohydrates and protein at every meal, and consistently but in moderation as well.
Exactly, yeah. And I'd say for anyone as well, if they're going to snack throughout the day, that they try and focus on having more protein snacks. It's so many snacks out there now that you can get. Like if it's a protein yogurt, you get Lidl, Aldi, Tesco, Super Value. So if you find between your meals that, you're going a long time without food, you have a protein yogurt, and that'll keep you going then to your next meal as well. And you're getting an adequate amount of protein in as well, which is essential for our body for growth and repair, especially as women age and that we start losing that muscle mass per year, that we get enough protein in as well.
Yeah. How much protein should I be eating if I'm training 3 times a week in comparison to my body weight?
Well, it changes for everyone. So, I'd say for anyone averagely that they're getting in a minimum of 100 grams of protein per day. If you're lifting weights, particularly two to 5 times per week, there's obviously a big jump from 2 to 5. I'd be saying to 130 to 150 grams of protein.
Okay.
And that can be easily done. I know it sounds like a lot of people are like, I can't get that in. We can, because protein yogurt alone is 20 grams of protein. A protein yogurt or a protein shake can be 30 grams of protein. And a protein shake is a supplement. So if you're struggling to get your protein in, it can be a supplement. It's not a replacement of anything. Yeah. It's a supplement which will help you. It's low in calories and it's to help you get that adequate amount of protein in. It's not something that you'd say I'd have that instead of a meal.
Yeah.
Or for like if you're going out for a run, this would be a great thing to have. Is that you're having a smoothie because you're getting that fast release of your fruits and your sugars going into your body, and then your protein will slow that down from when you go out for a run. So you're getting that quick fix of all your fruits and your carbohydrates into your body, because some carbohydrates are slower release where some are faster. So like a smoothie in the morning with a scoop of protein would be a great source for going for a run or doing a high intensity workout, rather than if you've got a workout in 4 hours time. You could have your oats and your eggs every morning so that you've got that slower release for your body for later for training.
Okay. From all of your life lessons and experiences over the years, what would be your 3 key pieces of advice for our listeners?
Embrace change, because we all have struggles in life, right? Don't let it define you. Believe in yourself, and don't let anyone bring you down, and even yourself, because at times you can bring yourself down. You can do something that you can put your mind to. If you just show up and be consistent, you'll climb the ladder and you'll get there eventually. Embrace the change over time, and embrace the empowerment of everything, and that you can encourage yourself to get to places where you've never been before. If you just be consistent, you show up for yourself and you believe in yourself. And be an open book. And what I mean, people are like, what do you mean by an open book? I mean, don't feel like you know everything. For example, in kickboxing, I didn't know everything. There was someone that knew something I didn't. When I'm speaking to you, Joanne, there's something that I don't know that you know. So be an open book to learn, because you can learn off someone every single day.
Yeah.
So that's what I would say.
Yeah, it's so true, isn't it? Don't be afraid to ask the stupid questions as well. What you might feel are stupid questions, but they never normally are.
If there's one thing that I would say for anyone that, finds that they're struggling with their training or wants to train, they just can't, is just show up. No matter what, no matter how tired you are, how crappy you feel. And this is something that I tell myself every day, because sometimes it's hard, especially with lack of sleep, and your kids wake you up as well. When you wake up, but lack of sleep can play havoc on your emotions. Is that you show up and you do a session every day. It doesn't have to be 100%, but it's something. Yeah. And you always feel better, and you feel better for yourself, and it just balances you out. I find that with training, obviously my mindset is a little bit different than others, but I need to train, and it just balances me out. And I find if that's for anyone that's struggling with their mental health or, anxiety or stress, get trained, go to a class environment, do something, and it will really, really help you.
It's just so important for your head. I think, I've seen, obviously you would train yourself a lot, and you have the experience, and, you have that background. I think for anybody who maybe struggles or is not as motivated, that when you go to those group PT sessions, they're just phenomenal, because I think you can go in and, you can just be told what to do for an hour. You can switch off. You have a sense of connection with people as well. And I think that's a lovely way, isn't it, for people to...
The community as well,
Yeah. There's so much in it, that's even bigger than the training itself.
Yeah.
Because anyone I would talk to would always just encourage to get yourself into a gym like that where you have that type of environment, because it's just, as you say, like it adds so much more value than even the physical training itself.
I just find, and just for me, for experience as well, and people just think that I just do it, you know, and just obviously just days where I struggle too. And that's where I was saying that was my mindset, is that just show up, because no matter what, you're always going to feel better. So I just say that to someone, like, even if they're, for example, I was talking to a woman the other day and she's a phenomenal runner and she does races and her mind eats her up all the time. And she's like, how do you do it? Like, how do you just go and do it? And I'm like, because I tell myself, once I do it, I won't regret it. You'll have that achievement, accomplishment of that you finished it and you've done it afterwards. So always remember, no matter what's stopping in your mind, just go and do it, because you'll be proud of yourself once you've done it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'd love to hear from somebody who has regretted training after they've done it, because I think it's, well, I know I never have. Anyway.
Yeah, I don't think anyone ever has.
And what about, you know, some people might say, right, well, I'm going to go and do 5 minutes. You know, is that enough, do you think? Like, is that showing up for you? And would you say that if you say you're only going to go and do 5 minutes, that you end up doing more anyway?
Yeah, definitely. So I think if you just say, I'm just going to go and just going to do 1 or 2 things just to make me feel better, you always find them, because then your endorphins start to kick in, and then you start, I'll just do another little bit here and a little bit there, and before you know, you probably have your full session done.
Yeah.
So tell yourself, I'm just going to go and do 5 minutes. And eventually, you know, and if you do 5 minutes, I suppose that's better than nothing. Something is always better than nothing. So yeah.
I think that's hard for people to comprehend. From my own perspective, you know, I always want to do the best, you know, the biggest session and everything perfect. And for me to say to myself, I'm going to go and do 5 minutes, or I'm going to just go and show up and see what happens, it's something that I would have never done. But now I find myself more and more, for loads of things, not just fitness, that I'll say, right, okay, I'll just go and see. And then you end up progressing. But it's very new for me to do that. But going and wanting to do the best session, and, you know, the full hour, and, you know, lift my best weights that I'd ever lifted, was a barrier more so than the motivation a lot of the time, because it actually might stop me from going, you know, because I'd be thinking I'm not going to be able to do that. So I think what you're saying is really good advice for people to break it down.
You know, no one's perfect, and you're going to have, it could be 1 or 2 workouts that'll be perfect in a week, and then other weeks none of your sessions are perfect. And we're all like that as well. So exactly what you said, just get out there and do it, feel good for yourself, and if it's even 5-10 minutes, to just embrace it. Yeah.
And is there any books that you've read over the years or recently that you'd recommend for our listeners?
So books in my house, I'm always trying to read a book, but it's quite hard when you're getting mammy all the time. So I've been reading the David Goggins book. Yeah. And it's been taking me a few months, because just trying to switch off. By the time I get to read, it's 10 o'clock. I read a few pages and I'm gone to sleep. Okay. So it's like, I might get 2 or 3 pages read and then that's it. And some nights I don't, I'm just too tired. So, but David Goggins book I find is really good. That would one I'd recommend for people to read.
It's not really a book that would put you to sleep though. It's kind of, it's go, isn't it? You know, I suppose you must be wrecked going to bed if you're reading that book and you're falling asleep.
The other one would be The Secret. That's a really good book. Like, I find that one really good, and that one's a good few years old as well. Yeah. But yeah, have you read the David Goggins book?
Yeah, I have. What I suppose I've mixed thoughts on it.
Well, I'm not all the way through. So.
Yeah, I loved it at the start. Maybe come back when you finished it. It's super high intensity, like yeah.
Well, he is a super high intensity kind of person. Yeah. But I just wanted to, obviously his mindset is different, but what he's been through in his life, you know, that what he's been through and where he's now is what I like about it.
And how he's channeled what he's been through in a positive way.
But at the same time, like, I wouldn't recommend a 13-year-old boy or girl to read that book. It'd be more an adult side to read the book, because it goes quite in depth into what happened when he was growing up as well, and you don't want your kids reading that, you know. Yeah.
Be interested to see your thoughts when you finished it.
Yeah, I'll come back to you next year.
And there's no big twist. It's not about that. I suppose it's just how my view of it shifted as I went through the book. You know, at the start I was like, wow, this is unreal, and then as I went through, I suppose I won't ruin it for you. But it'd be good to see when you finish it. And in terms of other high performance women that I should be speaking to on this podcast, who would they be and why?
So I mentioned Clara to you. Like Clara is a phenomenal athlete, and she's a mother. She's a teacher. You know, she works extremely hard. She was in the Hell Week, and I think she got to the final week of that. She's someone that is really empowering. So I'd love for you to chat to her.
Yeah,
she's just
she
amazing.
sounds amazing.
She is. And then just on the other text that there's my friend Bo. Her name is Bojana. She'd probably kill me for saying her name, but she is phenomenal. She's a phenomenal woman. She's a doctor. She's extremely intelligent. Obviously, she's a doctor. She competed with me. She was on the world scale as well of kickboxing. She was a phenomenal kickboxer. She's now a single mother. She's only just got her own mortgage. At this day and age, you know how hard it is to get your own mortgage. She had to go and get her own house. She has her son with her. She juggles everything. She's a doctor. She works now with, she's a immunologist, and she works in IVF to help people to have children. And she'd be someone, I just find her, she's very hard on herself, but she's a phenomenal woman, and she empowers me. I've never said that to her, but she really, really does. So I'd love for her to come on and have a chat if she would.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I hope she's listening and she gets to hear you say that about her.
Yeah, she'll ring me now.
Yeah. No, I'd love to chat to both of them. So hopefully you can connect me after this.
Yeah, definitely.
Sinead, inspiring as always. I've really enjoyed our chat. I think there's loads of takeaways for me and our listeners. I think if anybody who's listening doesn't follow you on Instagram, I would recommend that you do Sinead's Fitness Coaching, because you know, every day if you open up Instagram and you see you working out, it just reminds you of that consistency again. And it does definitely inspire me on a daily basis. So I really appreciate you coming in, and thanks for everything.
Thanks so much. I really enjoyed our chat too.
I really hope you enjoyed today's episode. You can join the High Performance Woman tribe by subscribing, liking and sharing podcasts with your friends and family, and by following me at High Performance Woman on Instagram and TikTok. I'll see you next time.